Talking brain, enlightened minds, seeking out truths, seeing the world with the mind of those who see beyond the three-dimensionally. So, talking brain, ask the right questions, uncovers the blinds.
Hey. Welcome everyone to
Souls Talking Brain
on Being Love TV. We are obviously exceedingly blessed to be here today. It's been about a year and a half since we've broadcast live, and we are so grateful to be able to be here with all of you today on Souls Talking Brain show, and we have a most phenomenal show for you today with a very special guest.
Dun, 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 bum, bum. A really special guest, actually. Ramgiri Braun, Ph.D. He's a remarkable, wonderful, inspirational individual who is going to be joining us today. I'm very excited.
Are you?
Very well. He's quite a remarkable individual, and his story in and of itself and his whole life is quite an inspiration. And we hope that it is an inspiration to all of you watching out there.
Indeed. So before we bring Ramgiri on and give him a call to join us on the show, why don't we tell you a little bit about him and why we are so excited that not only are we back, but we are back with such a wonderfully special guest to join us to mark the beginning of our new autumn 2014 season of Souls Talking Brain on Being Love TV.
Well, here we go. We've got Being Love presents Ramgiri Braun, Ph.D. was born into the dark shadow of the Holocaust in Germany. Out of deep depression and a powerful awakening at age 17 made him realize that limitless love, harmony, and enlightenment are the true nature of his being and of all beings. Ramgiri was profoundly inspired by this liberating love and spent the next 40 years learning from the great masters and developing HeartSourcing yoga. Ramgiri offers training and professional mentoring to people anywhere in the world.
40 years.
Yeah.
And it's quite a remarkable story. I have been blessed to read his latest offering of love, which is called HeartSourcing. There you go. Finding Our Way to Love and Liberation. And we will be journeying with Ramgiri today through his book, which is a recounting of his story coming into finding his way to love and liberation through what he calls heart sourcing. So we're very excited to get him on the line and learn more about his journey, which is bound to assist, uplift, empower, and enlighten each and every one of us in our own journeys to living through love's bliss. So should we
give him a call?
Give him a little ring-a-ding-ding.
Ring-a-ding-ding.
Ring-a-ding.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go.
So excited.
That is us calling. That is the phone ringing. Hello?
Hello there, how are you?
Very wonderful. How are you today?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today here on Soul's Talking Brain.
It's my pleasure to be here with you.
It is a pleasure for us. It is a pleasure for me, actually, as I have not myself not spoken to you. So it's a pleasure to finally get to speak with you, Ramgiri, as Roni, my soul sister, has been speaking with you throughout.
Very good.
And how is your day today, and your beingness of wonderfulness that you are?
Very nice, thank you.
Very good.
So we were just introducing everyone to you. We were giving a very brief introduction, as well as a brief introduction to your book, but we would love to hear from you a little bit more about yourself and your book, HeartSourcing, Finding Our Way to Love and Liberation, and perhaps a little bit about how you were inspired to write the book, to share the knowledge, and the journey that you've been on over the last 40 years.
Yeah, well, it's quite a story. I had we had a book launch party last Friday.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Here in Miami, and it was a wonderful event. And one of the guests asked, why do we need another book? What gave you the impression that this was something that needed to be added here? And I'm in this room. We had the party in a big independent bookstore, and this is a room full of books, of course, right? And I'm going like, well, I didn't want to write a book. There are so many books already. Why do we need another one? But then about 20 years ago, my teacher started to nudge me some more and poke at me and push me. And so I finally surrendered. And it took me still 20 years to get the book actually out.
20 years, eh?
Yeah, some people are slower than others.
Well, good things are worth waiting for.
Yeah, I think so too. And, one of the things that I've been so very aware of, because some of them are my friends, that there are many people who are spiritual teachers and aren't quite ready for it. And I also didn't feel ready for this for the longest time. And it wasn't until I was really pushed and it became clear that refusing to step into that role, first you're afraid if you put yourself out as a spiritual teacher, is it going to be an ego trip?
Of
right?
course.
And then, so that's when I refused. And then it came to the point, though, where continuing to refuse turned into an ego trip. So I had a choice, right? So the reason why this story needed to be told, my God, in a strange way, it doesn't have much to do with me. I'm sort of like this onlooker to the story of my life.
Or the conduit.
And, I was born in Germany after World War II and the Holocaust, and it was a very unfriendly, difficult environment. And I had a lot of suffering. I had a lot of anxiety and deep-seated lack of confidence, low self-esteem and depression. And, looking around me, it was just normal because everybody seemed to be like that. It was a difficult time for the whole country. And especially the aftermath of the Holocaust lay just very heavy over the land. And it was one of those things that nobody could really talk about freely, but it was just always there. And
of course,
this is something, like most of us, we have something. We have maybe an old pain of abuse or neglect, or this relationship that broke up, or this person that you loved that mistreated you, or we carry something like that, And I had the lucky situation that my misery was big enough, it was bad enough that I had to do something about it. And so...
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really a blessing when you look back, because without that pain, I would have just stayed in Germany, lived a little life, made money, had my 2.2 children, the average, and then died. But something didn't work like that for me. And so when I was about 17, I started having some very powerful spiritual experiences. And especially one stood out when I was in the hills in front of the Alps of Bavaria, and suddenly, one gorgeous summer day, my entire senses just opened up. And it was suddenly as though I stepped into heaven. I stepped into this landscape that was the same landscape as before, but with my senses opened and being absolutely present in that nature, I realized I was in the presence of God. And God wasn't a man with a long beard, as I had been taught. But God was everywhere and in everything. And God was also in me. And there was a profound sense of bliss and a very deep love. And in that moment, my life was really changed. And the experience lasted maybe 20 minutes.
Amazing what can happen in 20 minutes.
A lot can happen in 20 minutes. I mean, it could have been 30 seconds, really. It was so powerful that I was never the same afterwards.
But thankfully, the experience itself gave you the impetus to continue along that journey. A lot of people have had awakening experiences, and as you had mentioned in your book, actually, we have these grandiose awakening experiences. We feel the epitome of love's bliss, and then when we come down from the mountain or we come back from the vacation or what have you, we're back into the everyday living, and that feeling of awakening and love's bliss kind of peters out. Whereas with yourself, it was such a catalyst for you that you actually took action and took yourself all the way to India.
Yeah, well, let me say something else about that catalyst, because I'm sure probably everyone who's listening to us now has had that type of a moment. It may not have been a very spectacular thing. It could have been just a sense of peace or a sense of harmony, or a way that you were touched looking at the eyes of a baby, a newborn, or something like that, And we don't realize that at that moment we are receiving a message. And the message is that this love, this happiness, this clarity that we're experiencing could be there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pointer, it's like a signpost that says, come this way. But we tend to forget them.
Absolutely.
And I was very much in danger of that too. So after that experience, actually my life turned to hell.
Okay, then.
Because it was all the same, but now my normal misery was just that. But now I had something to compare it to. I had this moment on that hill in Bavaria to compare it to, and I saw how gray and listless and depressing my life was. And it was terrible. And I knew that holding on to this memory of this moment, this peak experience, was absolutely crucial. And so I held on to it, sometimes just with my bare fingernails, But it stayed in my mind, and it led me. It was a teaching that didn't stop. And the teaching said, go this way. Go in the direction of happiness. Go in the direction of this deep love that you felt. And so it became something that shaped me.
So you spoke right now to going into this immense hell, and yet having this light of awakening that was guiding you and giving you the impetus to take the actions, whether they be internal or external, to follow happiness. And in your book, HeartSourcing, you speak to 4 different skills that you yourself found, both in your own personal journey individually, as well as through the assistance of some of your gurus, to assist one to be able to come to a place where they're able to maintain that consciousness of happiness. Can you elaborate a little bit on what those 4 skills are and how we might be able to implement them into our own everyday lives?
I'd be very happy to.
Thank
The first thing that we need is we need to find some stillness. Because, as you know, the mind just chatters. It's always, we wake up in the morning and it's already running. And when we are just beset by this chattering mind, we don't really get in touch with ourselves. We don't really know what's up. And so to generate some sense of stillness, some sense of presence in our lives is really crucial. And that was the first thing that I had to do. Now, a little commentary on our time is that this was the late 60s, early 70s, and I was in Europe, and I was looking for somebody to teach me meditation. There was nobody. I had to travel all around Europe and finally found somebody in Holland who taught meditation. Now compare that to today. There's a yoga center at every corner.
Thank goodness.
Come a very long way. And stillness is, of course, not just meditation. It could just be being out in nature, or just being settled within yourself. And this is a very profound opening of a gate, because as long as we're just living in the intellectual mind, the thinking mind, we don't really get in touch with the deeper layers of our being.
I wanted to actually recap on the sense what you said is when you wake up and then your mind is just going, and to have to know how to be able to create the stillness when you're just waking up and it's going. Wouldn't you say that it's going consistently, just within even if you're sleeping?
Well, in dreaming that can be the case, but in deep sleep it's not active. In deep sleep is still.
So it's more it's the conscious thought that requires the stillness.
Well, there's 2 layers about the mind that I'm addressing here. One is this distractiveness of the mind. It just jumps from one thing to the next. Right? And the antidote for that is stillness, the development of stillness. And of course, meditation is the primary tool for that, but there's many other things we do.
Of course.
Here in Florida, people go fishing, and I'm sure there's a lot of guys who go out there and sit on the water or in the boats. What they really love most about it is that they become still.
It's the stillness which is the calm. I find that for me, it's very, perhaps if not equivalent to me in perception when you say stillness, is the same thing as calmness. The calmness of the inner. So your inner beingness is calm, so therefore not everything is as strongly effective or negatively effective, or that you are not as easily reactionary when there is a sense of stillness or calmness within the self. It's very difficult to reach that, and it takes a little bit of, obviously you have to be conscious of it first, you have to be aware of it first, and then you have to reach that place of the stillness. And yes, there are many ways to get at it, but we are talking to you now, and so therefore we are going to be inspired by your method.
Well, the primary thing that is really overarching is the thing that fuels anyone on this path of spiritual liberation, is that we need to really want it. We need to really be serious about it. Not serious as in somber. We can have a lot of fun with this, but we need to be really committed to it.
Yes.
Because the distractive force in the mind is very powerful.
Yes, dedicated
Extremely.
persistence. Dedicated persistence, indeed. So from stillness, you moved on to a second skill.
Yes, the next thing that really happened to me in my path was that I was introduced to an entirely different level of love and devotion. I came to India and I met some people there that began to teach me the history or the tradition of devotional yoga, bhakti yoga. And it was just amazing what I can't really talk about India as a whole, but I happened to come to a very sacred place.
Mm-hmm.
The entire atmosphere in this place is a little town south of Delhi called Vrindavan, which is a sacred place to Krishna. And the atmosphere in that whole place was so peaceful, so mellow, so gentle, that it was in extremely stark contrast to what I was used to in Germany.
Of course.
Quite the opposite.
Huge.
And so I lived in this atmosphere there for a while, and then I met my guru, Karoli Baba. Those of you listening who are familiar with Ram Das or Krishna Das, we share all the same guru. And he was this elderly gentleman who wore a blanket around him, which is not out of the ordinary in India, but that's sort of his hallmark. And the amazing thing about him was, the first thing that you noticed was that he knew everything about you. He was truly omniscient. And this was, of course, a thing that was completely unknown in the West, that was possible, that there were people in such a high state of consciousness that they could know absolutely everything about us. So that was in itself maybe shocking, maybe tremendous. But when I came to see Ram Das wrote in his famous book, Be Here Now, about this. And for him, this was an absolute shocker when he realized that Maharaji knew everything in his head. And I had read the book, and I was already familiar with that. So for me, this wasn't so shocking.
Right.
But the real event, or the real grace that happened, was that this man, although he knew everything about us, all our hidden little dark secrets, everything lay just in front of him. It was like looking through a piece of glass. He could look through us. But the most amazing thing was that he loved us absolutely, with a love that was so profound that all of those of us from the West who met him, and there's maybe 200 or 300 Westerners that ever met him, we had never experienced a love like this. We had been loved by our mothers and our siblings and our parents and friends and teachers, but never like this. It was a true, profound, unconditional love, to the point that you could step into this man's presence and be forever transformed. And this is what happened to me.
So he was detached. He was loving in a detached perspective, meaning that he was loving without any attachment. Therefore, there is no judgment, and there is no. It's just pure. It's pure unconditional love.
Acceptance of exactly who you are, as you are, with all of the good, bad, beautiful, and ugly. So, coming out of the Western world, you came into a much more comforting environment, a more safe and peaceful one, and then you met Maharaji, who was able within this environment to maintain a level of detached objectivity with the awareness of that which we are living in the world we're living in today, which there is much good, bad, beautiful, and ugly, and it is carried within each of us. And to be able to stand essentially naked before someone with the knowledge of all that is and all that we have within us, and know that we are accepted as we are, who we are, is an extraordinarily profound experience to have. I was curious in reading your book with respect to Maharaji, because he comes off somewhat godlike in relation to, for example, Majaya, who is much more human-like in respect to how we are in our current manifestation. Would you say that you saw, as I'm deeming it, human-like qualities in Maharaji himself?
Well, see, the thing is that the more divine we realize we are, the more human we become.
If you don't mind, I'd like you to elaborate what you mean by that.
See, the old way of spirituality from the Middle Ages was that we considered the world here the valley of sin and death that we had to transcend. And the movement was upward. You know, God was somewhere else, was up there in heaven someplace. And
right. Yes, like not basically outside of self. It's something that is not here, out there.
With that the rejection of the physical plane, the rejection of sexuality, the rejection of our humanity in a certain way.
Right,
Now,
okay.
the great realized beings also in the Western context, the great mystics did not do that. But that was the overall taste of that type of spiritual approach. And I don't think this works for most people anymore these days. Because we really need to find the divine inside the physical plane, inside the human plane, inside of us.
Absolutely.
Inside the cave of the heart. This is, of course, what HeartSourcing aims at.
Very lovely. So, from stillness, we move into the second skill, which is again
love and devotion.
And love and devotion is what you learned when you met Maharaji, and you felt that unbelievable, unconditional love for all that you are.
That was sort of the peak of the whole experience of my life, to be with somebody who was able to love like that.
Right.
But there are actual skills. There's a skill set to developing love and devotion. And we're not all that estranged from that. I was raised in the Catholic Church, and there's a lot of devotion there too.
Right.
You know, so it's not something that's like totally Eastern or so. In every religion you have love, in every human heart you have love. We are born and we open our eyes, and there is this mother that looks at us, and we cannot help but fall in love. And later this may be beset with some problems, but there is deep inside of us is the ability to love, to open up and trust and faith that is just totally there in every human being. And what we need to do is to remove everything that covers it up.
Okay, so
that's a lot to remove.
So what would you say? Because obviously we don't have the luxury of endless time for this show. What would be one key element in the skill of love and devotion that you might be able to give to us and our viewers regarding imbuing oneself with this skill?
Well, you know, a lot of people have that sense that they don't have enough love or much love in their lives. And that may be true. You know, I don't argue with that experience. But someplace there's a ray of light. Someplace there is someone you love or something you love. Start there.
Right.
And expand it. And at the end of our talk, I hope we can talk a little bit about heart sourcing itself, which comes really at the end of the book, but it's the culmination of all the attempts to find love through loving a divine being or a perfect situation that we're trying to create and so on. It's finding the very core, the very essence of love, which is already inside of us.
All right, well, why don't we take a very, very quick little break, and we can come back, get those 2 other skills out of the 4, and then get right into the heart sourcing itself. Sound good?
Right.
All right. So we will be back with you, lovelies, in about 1 moment. Share the love.
Share the love.
Share the love.
See, there you go. Love, as we were just coming from the second skill, which is love, right? Sharing the love. Here what we're doing is sharing the love. And we ask that you share the love, if you so feel the love, to share the love.
So you can very easily share our show with your entire community. There are navigational buttons underneath the video that you are watching that make it very easy. You just click and share. So please do.
Just like that.
As we do this show for the benefit of all. And the more who get to watch and enjoy, the more who are enlightened to the beauty that we are sharing here, which again is authentically for the benefit of each individual in their own lives, and therefore for the benefit of all of we. So let us get back to our wonderfully special guest, Ramgiri, and his book, HeartSourcing, Finding Our Way to Love and Liberation. And our third in the 4 skills of heart sourcing that Ramgiri has presented. Number 3 being, Ramgiri?
Emotional harmony.
Emotional harmony. This is the big one.
That's a good one.
Right. So here are the 3 levels of obstructions that sort of block us out of the heart, our deepest heart. The first one is what we started with. That's the distractedness of mind. And for that, the antidote is stillness. The next one now we're talking about is negative emotions. And we're, of course, all quite familiar with that. And I was working for about 2.5 decades as a psychotherapist, and worked from that spiritual background, and became nervous because of what I was doing. I didn't read about what I was doing anywhere else. And you're supposed to do kind of like what everybody else is doing. But what I was doing with my clients just worked so well that I had to keep going. And then it wasn't until Eckhart Tolle's books came out that I found somebody else who was doing the same thing. And I called it open attention. He calls it presence. It's basically the same thing. Open attention. What do? We have an emotion. How do we feel an emotion? An emotion expresses itself in the body as a body sensation. So if you think back at a time when you were angry or sad or grieving or something like that, you could feel that in the body. And then what we do with these sensations, we don't want to feel them. We push them away, we escape from them, we repress them, or sometimes we indulge in them, or sometimes we just complain about them. And none of that works.
Correct.
So we do something else. And what I found we need to do is we need to open to that place of the pain, of the emotion inside of us. And we can't do that as long as we have our normal conditioned thinking, because our conditioned thinking tells us that this is something like a threat or an enemy that we have to get rid of. Imagine, a feeling of great anxiety in your body. It just feels terrible. And we want to get rid of that feeling. But every attempt to get rid of, the saying, Wherever you go, there you are.
Yes, when you're trying to get rid of yourself, it's kind of difficult.
Where you are you, yes.
And really, by unconsciously behaving as though these feelings, these emotions are threats or enemies, we make an enemy inside of us, and we cannot win that fight. So what the most important thing we need to realize is that these negative emotions, these difficult moments in our lives, they are parts of us that need help. With that insight that it's not something we have to get rid of, but something inside of us that needs help, that's a very core insight. And with that, our brain actually begins to change.
It's something that I speak to often in my own enlightenment journeys with my angel partners, what I call my clientele, is to be able to detach from the voices that we're hearing within so that we can begin to have a conversation with them, and to be having this conversation from going back to your second skill, a place of love and devotion. And the devotion is to be bringing forth the love that these aspects of self are not feeling. So I found a lot of similarities in when I was reading your book to what I put into practice within my own practice, which I found to be as wonderful, I'm sure, as you did when you read Eckhart Tolle's book. Being able to, instead of getting angry at ourselves for our angry feelings, to actually see them with compassion, from the perspective of understanding that it's actually a part of ourselves that is so angry because we're not paying attention to it, and providing it with the love that it is desperately asking for.
Excellent. Exactly. That's the key. And open attention gives you a very systematic, step-by-step way you can do that with your different emotional patterns.
Wonderful. Would you like to go through the step by step, or would you like to move into the fourth skill?
Let's go to the fourth skill,
Okay.
which is the other way that we are blocked out of our true heart. And that is, we talked about the distractedness of the mind,
Right.
but not talking about specific stressful thoughts and beliefs. So what do we do with them? It was very eye-opening for me that after 30 years of very focused and intense spiritual work and meditation, this was in the year 2000, I came across this American woman named Byron Katie.
Yep.
And she has developed this skill she calls the work.
Yep.
Which is a way to investigate the mind with the mind. And I realized that throughout these 30 years of meditation, there were many stressful thoughts and beliefs that had completely survived all my meditation experiences.
Yeah, you had written something in your book that I thought was just brilliantly profound. You had said, time does not heal all wounds. That it had nothing to do with time and everything to do with you and choosing how you were responding or react. I say, instead of react, respond. So instead of reacting to the world, I would say you are responding through love. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, especially when we look at traumas that we suffer, everybody carries something like that. And then we have this idea that time heals it. Well, it doesn't. It just goes deeper and deeper underground, and it soaks away some of the zest of life and the joy of life that we could have, and we age prematurely, and we live our lives in a state of misery. So that is not the right way. So we need to actually do something actively to get free of the, the burdens that we carry.
So what would that doing actively to free ourselves look like?
Well, HeartSourcing is this integrated way that we we still have to talk about heart sourcing itself, which is the access to the deepest heart. It starts with love and devotion, but it goes deeper than that.
Okay.
And then we see that we have this capacity that we have in us, the very source of profound happiness and profound love. But we cannot get there all the time. Sometimes we touch on it, and these are the best moments of our lives. But is that enough?
Right.
Or do you live there all the time? So if you want to live there all the time, you have to remove what stands in the way. And what stands in the way are basically three different things.
Okay.
So, like I already mentioned, the distractedness of mind, specific stressful thoughts and beliefs, and negative emotions. If we can free ourselves of those three, we have access to the heart, and our behavior, our relationships, and our physical world, our health, everything will improve. I joke and I say, you even get a better job, but it may be the job you have at this moment. You'll just be in it in a whole different way, open and loving and communicating and being at peace with yourself.
Would you say that you have reached this fabulous, wonderful place of peace within yourself, or at least have had moments of it?
Well, he's definitely had
Moments.
If I look back in my past, I see an unbelievable difference.
Mm-hmm.
I used to live in a world that was gray and depressing. It was like there was a constant dark cloud cover over my sky. And every once in a while, but very rarely, there was just a little moment where the sun peeked out, but then it was just gray.
Mm-hmm.
Now I live in a world that has a clear sky. And every once in a while, maybe there's a tiny little cloud someplace of an old remembrance of depression or something, and I get to laugh at it, and it dissipates. And this is the outcome of doing the type of spiritual work that's actually effective, and I have my teachers to credit for showing me that.
Right.
So it's basically it's being conscious and being that it is something that you are having to be dedicated, consciously dedicated, being conscious and consciously dedicated to maintaining and sustaining this state of beingness of bliss, basically. Because I don't even know if there is even a state of a person in our world that has reached it and is just consistently there because they've reached it, because they've reached it, so then they're just naturally just there.
No, I don't agree. We are naturally there already.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All of it. We just don't know it. And so with the removing of these layers of distracted mind and negative thoughts and negative emotions, we get to realize that place that is always in a place of peace.
Right.
That is always in a state of loving and bliss.
So he's talking about the you inside of you that is not, that is the one with the
that
all.
Is the one, yeah.
So your infinite, the detached objective observer that is experiencing life and is there all of the time. That is just, this is all just transitory. So connecting with that consciousness level, which is always there, it's the point of being able to maintain it. Right?
Right. But you don't have to maintain what you are.
Good point.
That's a very good point, actually.
So
what
then,
we need to do is we need to be on guard for the old patterns of stressful thoughts and emotions that come in and capture our minds.
Right.
Then we're back in that misery that is really part of the conditioned mind, the conditioned way of being, that is not us.
So it's basically being aware of not allowing, it's just
disassociating from the negativity
and
that the mind has been conditioned
exactly
to identify with.
Exactly. being a bodyguard to your own self. Basically.
Well, it sounds a little stressful to me.
All right, so make it less stressful for us. Take us into HeartSourcing.
Do it.
Yeah. So maybe I'll tell the story a little bit. In 2006, I went back to India, and I hadn't been there for 30 years. I went to my guru's ashram, and I was on a mission. I had dedicated my life when I was 23 to one single cause, and it is to learn how to share with people that amazing love and freedom and happiness that he had shown me existed.
Right. This and you're speaking to the Maharaji, yes?
Maharaji, yes,
Yes.
right.
Okay.
Of course, I had a long journey for that. That was, training over, 30 plus years.
Absolutely.
And, but in that commitment, I was very one-pointed on that commitment, right? And I knew in 2006, I knew that I had all my ducks in a row. I had these incredible skills that we just talked about, but there was one piece was missing, and I didn't know what it was.
Okay.
And I went back to his ashram and sat again in the place where I sat when he was alive and he taught us. And I had this intense energy in me, and I was just going like, you have to give it to me. I am not taking no for an answer. You have to give me the missing piece. And then one morning, early at 5 o'clock in the morning, I was sitting there chanting some ancient chant again and again. And my consciousness was powerfully drawn inside the heart. And I realized that the heart is like a gateway. It's a portal into an inner space that I had never consciously experienced. There is inside of us a realm, you might call it the realm of the sages or a Buddha realm, the perfected world. The gate of the heart opens, and you go into a place that is absolutely limitless in its light and its love. So that was an experience that profoundly shaped me. And when I was in that experience, really the world was gone. I was inside that space of the heart. Words formed themselves in my mind. I had asked for that, and I wanted to bring something back to this planet. And the words that came were that within us there are uncounted dimensions upon dimensions of pure, unconditional love without end. That is what we are. And all the hassles and problems of life are a distraction from that. It's a shadow world that we live in. The true world, the true identity that we have is this pure, unconditional love without end. And I realized after this experience that that was the missing piece, that we are all capable of nurturing ourselves from that innermost place. There are words for that in Sanskrit. It's called the Hridayam, sometimes translated as the cave of the heart.
Yes, Melchizedek speaks to that.
The deepest heart, the deepest place where there's absolute perfection. And that absolute perfection can be seen in any moment of life. In regular life, with its ups and downs, its good and bad moments, but somehow everything that happens has the purpose to take you there. And so it serves you. It's not a bad thing in itself.
We're going to take a very, very quick break, but when we come back, I would love it if you can give us your greatest words of wisdom to assist us in maintaining this consciousness perspective, this consciousness paradigm in which we are able to live our lives and go through the many motions and waves that life brings forward, the death, the breakups, the heartaches, and to be able to find a way to float through them or flow through them without the enormous amounts of emotional angst, highs and lows that we are so accustomed to, if that's okay with you.
Of course.
All right, so we'll be back in just a few moments, and we'll hear one more huge piece of fabulous wisdom from Ramgiri and his amazing book, HeartSourcing, Finding Our Way to Love and Liberation. And we're back. So for those of you who just saw, we do have opportunities for those interested in advertising on our show, as well as sponsoring one of our shows. As you've seen, we've had a couple of commercials here. One of those could be you, advertising your wonderful services and or products that you are creating, producing, providing to and for the benefit of all of we. So definitely do get in touch. The email address is right here, beinglove@oneisall.com. And of course, for those of you who would like to donate to assist us in bringing forward this show that we do from the absolute unconditional love of our hearts, you can simply go to beinglove@oneisall.com/donate to share your love with our show. So back to our special guest, Ramgiri. And before we left the show, we wanted to ask Ramgiri.
We wanted to ask him. You
just had a brain freeze.
I just had a brain freeze.
We wanted to get. We wanted a nice.
Excuse me.
A nice big summary or the biggest piece of wisdom that Ramgiri can give to us with respect to maintaining a consciousness of love's bliss, even when we're dealing with the day-to-day grind of life,
of just everything,
of everyday life, and being able to maintain that state of bliss. So Ramgiri, if you can please enlighten us, we would be most grateful to hear from you.
So we all is in a cultural background of original sin. That's the Western attitude for life. And of course there's some truth to that, because we're all carrying some burden in this world, don't we? Now the Eastern religions, like Hinduism and Buddhism, don't operate from that assumption. They operate from assumption of original goodness. And
Right.
they also are right. They're just looking a little bit deeper. So in the core of our heart, we all have this original goodness, this profound love. We have a place in us that is already enlightened, that is always there, but we can't get to it. We can't get to it because there are obstructions. And we mentioned those 3 layers of obstructions, and they're antidotes. The first layer, most subtle layer, is the distractedness of mind, that the mind just never settles down. And that antidote for that is meditation and other ways to generate stillness. Next layer,
which is what you said is calmness.
Stressful thoughts and stressful beliefs. And the best antidote for those that I found, there's many things you can do.
Of
But the
course.
most effective antidote I found is the work of Byron Katie. And the next layer, we're going from subtle to gross. The next layer is stressful emotions, negative emotions. And for those, we have open attention. In this system of transforming your life into a life of happiness that I call HeartSourcing, I mentor people personally in various ways. And what I see is that as they remove these obstructions, that inner place of love and harmony becomes increasingly accessible to them.
Right.
And it changes them automatically. Their behaviors, their relationships improve, their health improves, and they begin to live in a very different world, because we all live in our own private world that is created inside of us through the attitudes and beliefs that we have. So as we clear inside, our whole world clears, and as our world clears, we become a contributor of this love, just very automatically. This show is called Being Love. It couldn't be more appropriate because we are that love.
Right.
We need to manifest it. We need to remove what stands in the way, and then we can be love very naturally, without any type of stress about it or any kind of I have to do this. No, it's just a natural sharing of what we are. So this is my wish for all our listeners, to find the way to free themselves of whatever burdens you, whatever old pain. There's two layers really. There's sort of the surface hassles of daily life. We need to get a handle on them. And then we have also the old pain that we really don't want to touch. And HeartSourcing allows you to find ways to lighten up all of that and find the essence of love that you are.
So it's, sorry, go ahead.
It's interesting because we are completely that, being that the minute we enter into this world as infants. We are completely innocent and pure and divine in and of itself.
And then we get, the mind gets to be conditioned, negative emotions start occurring, and so on. So now we have to reverse that process and free us of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean, you see, there's of course very positive things to the mind. We keep the mind around, but we make it from an enemy or a dictator that it sometimes can be, into our friend, into our servant. And suddenly life works in a very different way.
What were you going to say?
No, go on.
So essentially, if I'm hearing you correctly, one of the biggest things that we need to do is stop fighting the aspects of ourselves that are fighting, that are angry, that are upset, that are emotionally burdened, and essentially befriend them and find a way to make use of them to assist ourselves. And in order to reach that state of consistent and maintained bliss, it's there is no necessarily magic pill per se, but a dedicated devotion and commitment to working through the multitudes of negative emotions, traumas, so on and so forth, that we may be able to find this pathway to the heart, or as you would call it, heart sourcing, to be able to free ourselves of these. Would that be fair to say as a summary?
Yeah, that's very, very well put. We have, in psychology, of course, we have now many, many different diagnoses, different approaches to the different diagnoses. It's very complex.
Right.
HeartSourcing makes it very simple.
Okay.
We really just have these 3 layers of obstructions. We need to have one skill for each, and
Okay.
we use as these things come up, and free ourselves systematically through every experience we have in life.
And this is something that you've been journeying through for the last 40 years.
That's correct, yes.
So for somebody who is, let's say, in their young 20s and they are coming into conscious awareness of the reality that there is a better way of living through their life, what kind of longitude would you say that they can expect to be able to get to that place where they are able to maintain a state of consistent bliss?
Well, it's different with every person, but what I want to say is that whatever age you are, save yourself a lot of future suffering, which will happen pretty automatically if you don't do anything. You just live in this way that we've been conditioned in this world to live.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But have the interest in yourself, the self-love, to apply the one, there is actually a silver bullet, a magical pill. It's called awareness. To have the awareness about yourself that can save you from untold pain. And that's what keeps me going, because I see that in myself, I see that in the people I work with, that we can go through whatever life brings, but we do not have to have the kind of negative reactions and painful reactions and old grief and so on that we otherwise carry around.
Ultimately, it comes down to a choice, essentially. From everything that I'm hearing, it's a choice to be devoted and dedicated to aligning oneself with a consciousness that is based within love versus one that is based within fear. And okay, and then being able to look upon our fear openly with love, so that we are able to, whenever the fear does come up, the negative emotions, so on and so forth, to meet that with love, so that we don't delve into the fear and get reactionary, but we respond instead consciously with the awareness of love.
Yeah, all the ancient paths that have taught this are agreeing on one thing, that we need to have three things.
Okay.
We need to have this goal of our freedom from pain and of that great place of love that we have inside us.
Okay.
So we need to be very focused on that goal. Secondly, we need to have the skills, the practices that were given to us by the people who went there before us. And thirdly, we need to have the support of other people. So when we have these three things lined up, your world is going to change. Your life is going to change. You're going to surprise yourself and actually get happy.
Right. So obviously for you, community is extraordinarily important.
Well, community, actually, the Buddha was asked which one of these three components of a spiritual life are most important.
Okay.
And he said, community to community to community. Your peers, your teachers, this connectedness can teach you, it can encourage you, it can help you when you get stuck. Without that, it's very hard to progress.
Right. All right.
I would imagine so. Otherwise, we would not all be here together with, billions of us all together in this world, sharing and being. Obviously, that is quite essential.
These days, with the technology of connectedness that we have, it's just fantastic. I work with people all over the world, and I don't have to leave my living room.
That's right. We're doing it right now.
Yeah, exactly. We're very blessed.
Yes.
And for those who are wanting to delve more deeply into your book and to get more information with respect to the specifics to which we've been speaking about today, because there is, I can tell you myself firsthand, so much more information than that which we are able to cover in our short show. Where can we send our viewers to purchase your book, HeartSourcing, Finding Our Way to Love and Liberation?
You can come to our website.
Okay.
Either going to skillsforawakening.com or to ramgiri.com.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. And Are you going to be doing any public seminars, workshops, or lectures in the coming months that you would like to share with our viewers who maybe would like to meet you in person?
I would love for whoever's interested to sign up for our newsletter, because that's the way we can stay in touch. And I have one thing planned. I'm going to visit Ramdas in October, and we'll probably put together a webcast. And so there's all kinds of things planned, but they come out more or less on short notice.
Right. And so your newsletter would be an amazing way in order to be able to stay in touch.
That would be the best thing.
Yes, and I can attest to that. I am part of the newsletter. I actually was. I've been receiving HeartSourcing tips and blessings of love from you for well over a year now. So it's quite a gift to me that we are sitting here today talking in person, because I was extremely inspired, and I am very, very grateful that we've been gifted this blessing to be here with you today and to share within your journey over the last 40 years and the heights and depths that you have journeyed through, and the insights and wisdom that you have come to understand and to live and breathe and now to share with all of we. It's quite something very sweet. So we are extraordinarily grateful to you for being here today and for sharing with us.
Mm-hmm.
You're so welcome. It's been a joy to be with you.
So,
did you want to ask anything else, love?
I think I don't. Was there anything else that we needed to ask? I'm trying to remember.
Maybe
if yes, go ahead, please. If there's
I just add one thing.
Yes, absolutely, of course.
We speak here in the way that we've been trained to relate to each other, which is as separate human beings. You're over there and I'm here. But as we mature in this spiritual view, as we become lighter, freed of our burdens and our inner obstructions, we get to see more and more that there are really no boundaries between us. That we can have our separate lives, but deep in the heart, in our awareness and in our love, we are one and the same. And we, in our different ways, are working on this great transformation, each one of us, inside of us. And for that, we are each other's blessings. And so I thank you for having me on the show and providing this blessing to your listeners. And each one of you who are listening, know that that place in you that yearns for love, that yearns for freedom, that yearns for true and lasting happiness, that is real. It's not imagined. It's actually much more real than what we call usually the real world.
That's what I'd like to think.
So feel encouraged and keep going on this path to yourself, because that's where we're going. We're going to meet ourselves in the depth of the love that we are.
That's like I love that. Thank you for that, actually. Thank you so much for that. Because we do tend to think that it's some kind of utopian, never sort of fantasy that it is so far from us that it's miraculous. It's a miracle if it is to happen, or that we are not deserving of it, or even if that is something that is even possible. But that's what I'd like to think. I always think that. I was like, but why shouldn't it? And why isn't it? And it's not that it isn't. It's just that that's what I would like to think, that is what we should all be living and experiencing, is this complete and utter bliss that we are.
But it's a matter of having to be able to trust in love instead of in fear. And it does, as Ramgiri was saying, take committed devotion.
Yeah.
Because we have been so very well conditioned and trained and taught that reality is that which we see through the eyes of fear.
Yeah, we see the reality is what is that we're experiencing as reality, but really what real is, which is what Ramgiri you just said, is bliss. That is real. But
it's a matter of switching from trusting from one into the other.
This is a matter of having to also explain it properly so that it is
Which is why we have this great book.
Yes, let me actually put that up there as well so that people can see the book as well. It's quite remarkable. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Beautiful angel. And for being here today, and for myself, I'm very grateful to have had this wonderful experience and sharing our energies and having you be a part of us as we are a part of you now, and therefore a part of all.
And to all of our wonderful Earth Angels Divine who have come to share in our first show, Souls Talking Brain, on Being Love TV in almost 18 months.
Yeah, a long time.
And the very first of our 2014 autumn season. We thank you from the depths of our beingness for being here, for sharing with us in this auspicious occasion. We look forward to seeing you again, as we will be broadcasting regularly once again on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we invite you to share both our invitation to join us as well as our shows. They are all recorded and they are all available for your convenience, both to watch as well as to share with those whom you love on YouTube on our Being Love TV Souls Talking Brain show page, which is right there. So you can access all of our shows there and can share them through there as well. And we look forward to communicating with each and every one of you on our next show. Please do stay tuned, as we will be letting you know the marvelousness that is coming up next time on Souls Talking Brain on Being Love TV.
And for myself, Aline Ohannessian,
Roni Lipstein, the
and
double
our
goddess.
wonderful, wonderful guest here today, Ramgiri, we wish you a wonderful, blissful, loveful, filled, full of love, love, day, evening, morning, wherever you happen to be.
Namaste and Lakesha Lakin.
Souls talking brain, enlightened minds, seeking out truths, seeing the world with the mind of those who see beyond the three-dimensionally. Souls talking brain, ask the right questions, uncovers the blinds. Souls talking brain,